So yesterday as I was driving, I listened to an old podcast with Kelly Starrett, San Francisco CrossFit, on a podcast with Tim Ferriss. And Tim asked Kelly, how do you know when you have a great coach? And one of the things Kelly, he talked about a couple of things, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he talked about, the intangibles of a coach being able to really see and diagnose and the errors and then come up with solutions. And I would agree. I think that's one of the more difficult things in coaching, and it takes a lot of experience as a coach. So, typically, on the internet and coaching clinics and stuff like this, coaches want drills. So give me a shooting drill, give me a rebounding drill, or they want plays. I need a play to run against a man-to-man defense. I need a play to run against a zone defense, so on and so forth. And Kelly Starrett, more from a strength and conditioning standpoint, was talking about great programmers, so they know how to write a program for this athlete. They're experts in periodization and things of this nature, and that is kind of the easy part of coaching. It's easy to look online and find a drill for whatever it is that you want to, whatever skill you want to, teach. It's easy to look online and find plays. I mean, if you go on YouTube now, there's half a dozen people that you could follow, and you could have all the plays in the world that you would ever, want to use. But being able to run a drill and being able to run a play doesn't make a great coach, because you have to, from a play standpoint, you have to be able to fit that to your personnel and be able to adjust and adapt it to your personnel. From a skill development standpoint, you have to be able to see how that skill fits with the individual. So what does the individual bring to the court in terms of, maybe their size, their strength, their experience, previous skills, and then how is that skill, going to work for that player, and what's a mistake versus what's kind of their personal style. So if you look at shooting and you look at the top shooters, look at the difference between somebody like, Kyle Korver, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, going back, in history, Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, Larry Bird. There are definitely some things that are consistent between them, especially at the release, but those shots from start to finish look very different. And so if you get a player who shoots more like Reggie Miller, is that something that is their personal style and they're still successful, or is that something that you need to diagnose as an error? Maybe they could shoot somewhat like a Steph Curry, but there could be a small error in their technique, and so maybe there's just one small thing that you need to correct, and then they can have a lot more success. And I think being able to notice these things, decipher what's a mistake, what's personal style, what's limiting performance versus what may be enhancing performance for this particular athlete. And then when it is a limiter, being able to diagnose, what drills may be able to help this player, or, how can we reframe a drill or recreate a drill to change, what type of feedback do we need to give, or instructions do we need to give to the athlete to try to make these subtle changes. To me, that's really where, coaches start to differentiate themselves, from other coaches, and the great coaches or the better coaches start to differentiate themselves, from kind of the vast majority of coaches that are kind of in the middle, kind of in the average coaches. And same thing, when we're talking about strategy, how can you really fit this play to your personnel to maximize all of your players, and not just, put it in because it works for somebody else and you're going to try to force your players to do the same thing, even though your personnel is a lot different than other teams' personnel. So again, just the idea of, as you gain experience as a coach, those are some of the things that you start to have the eye for coaching, is kind of how I think of it, is you can really see things, as they happen, and be able to come up with solutions to help players. And I think experience will start to give some of those tools and let you see more and more and more, in everyday practice. And then the experience of working with more athletes, working with more teams, gives you a deeper reserve of ideas and concepts to use to help to improve athletes' performance and come up with different solutions for the problems that you're able to see.